The bride from the stars, the hall was cold and bright, filled with the quiet hum of alien machines. Alara stood trembling under the silver light, her heart racing as the human soldiers watched her from a distance. She had never seen one of them so close before, creatures from the blue planet Earth, known across the stars for their strange strength and unpredictable kindness. But today she was not a soldier, not a rebel, not even free. She was a bride. Her hands were bound by a treaty her people had signed, a peace deal sealed by marriage, and she, the daughter of the Viralan chieftain, had been chosen to wed a human captain. His name was Captain Marcus Hale, a man whose reputation reached even her world. They said he had ended wars without firing a shot, and others said he had burned planets to save his crew. No one truly knew who he was, but Alara feared him more than death itself when he entered the hall. Every alien eye turned toward him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark armor that gleamed like midnight. His face was calm, but there was something behind his eyes, a quiet sadness, a depth she couldn't understand. The ceremony began. Words were spoken in two languages. Alara's throat tightened as the translator announced, "You are now bound under the Unity Accord." The human extended his hand. Waiting for her to touch it, her people watched silently, and she knew she could not refuse. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, expecting pain, harshness, or command. But when his skin met hers, it was warm, gentle, steady. He didn't grip her hand like an owner, but held it like someone afraid of breaking something precious. She looked up in surprise, and for a second their eyes met. Marcus spoke softly, his voice deep but kind. "You don't have to be afraid." The translator echoed his words. But even without it, she understood. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an order, it was a promise. She blinked, confused, her heart pounding with fear and something else she didn't recognize. Later, when they boarded his ship, the Dauntless, the largest vessel she had ever seen, Alara stayed silent. She expected the cold treatment of a prisoner, the mocking eyes of humans who saw her as an enemy. But instead, the crew greeted her with respect. The captain ordered a cabin prepared for her, complete with the light spectrum her species preferred, and when she refused food out of fear, Marcus himself brought a plate and said, "No one will harm you here." She didn't believe him. Not yet, because kindness was a weapon too, and humans were masters of it. Still, when she lay in her quarters that night, staring at the soft lights above, she couldn't help but remember the way his voice had trembled slightly when he said those words. There was no mockery, no command, only truth, and that frightened her even more than hate would have. Outside her window, the stars moved slowly. The ship sailed through the dark, carrying two strangers bound by peace but separated by fear. And somewhere deep inside, the first thread of something fragile began to form. Not love yet, but curiosity. Why would a conqueror speak so gently? Why would a human show mercy to the daughter of his enemy? She didn't know the answers, but she would soon learn that the one she feared most would be the one who would save her from everything she thought she knew. The humans promised, the Dauntless sailed quietly through the dark between stars. A floating city of steel and light, Alara walked its halls like a ghost, keeping her eyes low, always alert for cruelty. But cruelty never came, only small gestures that confused her. Humans smiling, engineers greeting her, children waving from the crew quarters. It was not what she had been told, not what the Viralan elders warned her about. One morning, the ship shook as it dropped from warp near the outer colony of Nareth. Marcus called her to the bridge, his tone calm but firm. "You'll want to see this." When she entered, screen showed smoke rising from a small settlement below. Alien refugees under attack. Alara's breath caught. "Those are my people," she whispered. He looked at her, his blue eyes steady. "Then we're going to help them." She stared at him, disbelieving. "They are enemies of your command." "Not today," Marcus said quietly. "Not while I'm in command." The crew moved fast, launching shuttles, deploying drones for cover. Alara followed him into the hangar, watching as soldiers strapped on armor not for conquest but rescue. He handed her a communicator. "Stay close. And if you see someone hurt, tell me." She nodded, unable to form words. The human captain's armor gleamed as he walked into the light. She had seen many leaders in her life, but none who risked themselves for strangers. On the ground, the air was thick with smoke and fear. Civilians ran from collapsing shelters, fire raining from the mountains where mercenaries bombed for profit. Marcus led the charge, shielding the weak, barking orders to his team. At one point, a blast struck nearby, knocking Alara to the dirt. Before she could move, strong hands lifted her, his voice steady in her ear. "You're all right? I've got you." Her chest tightened, not from fear but from something she didn't understand. They spent hours rescuing survivors, pulling children from rubble when it was over. Hundreds lived who would have died. The alien elders bowed to Marcus, calling him protector. He didn't take the praise, he just said, "Tell your people to rebuild. Peace isn't written on paper. It's built by hands like yours." That night, as the ship rose back into orbit, Alara sat alone. Watching the stars again, Marcus approached, setting a ration pack beside her. "Eat, you need your strength." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Why did you do that?" "They are not your kind," he smiled faintly. "Because being human isn't about who you fight. It's about who you save." His words echoed in her mind long after he left. Every tale she had heard about humans spoke of destruction, power, and dominance, but she had seen something else. A quiet mercy. A strength that didn't need to crush to prove itself. She realized then that the one she feared was not her captor. He was her shield, and perhaps her chance to understand what kindness truly meant. As the stars drifted by, she whispered to herself, maybe the stories were wrong. Outside, the Dauntless glowed softly, carrying a promise across the endless dark. And in the heart of the human captain, a vow was forming, one he hadn't spoken yet. But soon, when the storm came for both of them, that promise would be tested in fire and truth. Beneath the iron sky, days passed quietly aboard the Dauntless. But silence in space was never peace. Alara had begun to walk the observation deck at night, tracing the stars with her fingers. Each point of light was a memory of her home, a place she might never see again. And yet she no longer felt like a prisoner. The human crew treated her with respect, sometimes even affection. They called her Lady Alara, though she had no kingdom here. But one evening, the calm shattered. The alarm rang through the corridors, red lights flashing. Marcus's voice came over the comms, sharp and steady. "All crew to stations. Unauthorized vessel approaching." Alara ran to the command bridge, her heart pounding. On the main screen, a massive ship loomed, its markings unmistakable. It was Viralan, her own people. The crest of her father's council burned across the hull. "Your people are hailing us," said the communications officer. Marcus nodded. "Patch them through." The hologram that appeared made Alara's stomach twist. Her father's advisor, Elder Jean, cold and cruel as always. "So this is the mighty human who took our princess," he sneered. Marcus's tone stayed calm. "We didn't take her. Your treaty assigned her to the Unity Accord." Jean's eyes narrowed. "Then return her, Captain, or we will take her by force." The humans tensed. Hands on weapons, but Marcus didn't flinch. "She's under my protection now." Alara stepped forward before she could think. "No," she said, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. They'll destroy you." Jean's eyes widened. "You speak for them now, Alara?" Her throat closed. She didn't know how to answer. Marcus spoke instead. "We don't want war, but we don't surrender people to threats." The channel cut off. The air thick with tension. Moments later, the Viralan ship fired. The Dauntless shuddered as plasma bolts struck its shields. "Evasive maneuvers!" Marcus shouted, gripping the rail as the deck tilted. The humans fought back with precision, targeting the enemy's weapons, not their engines. Alara could see it. He was holding back, refusing to kill her people, and yet the Virilans had no mercy. A blast ripped through the lower deck, and the lights flickered. Smoke filled the bridge, sparks showering the consoles. Alara coughed, trying to see through the haze. She saw Marcus pulling an injured crewman to safety, refusing to leave anyone behind. When another explosion rocked the ship, she ran to help him, grabbing the fallen officer's arm. Together they carried him to medbay. Lungs burning from the smoke, Marcus turned to her, eyes fierce. "Stay here." But she grabbed his wrist. "You'll die if you go alone." For a moment, their eyes met, hers full of fear, his full of resolve. He smiled slightly. "Then I guess you better come with me." They ran back toward the command deck. Side by side, the ship groaned under the assault, metal screaming in protest. But the humans didn't break through chaos and fire. Marcus led with courage that silenced her doubts forever. When the Viralan ship finally withdrew, crippled but alive, the Dauntless floated battered but unbroken. Hours later, Alara sat beside him in the medbay as wounded soldiers rested. "Why didn't you destroy them?" she asked softly. He looked at her, tired but unyielding. "Because I won't let peace begin with ashes." Her chest ached with something powerful. Pride, sorrow, admiration, maybe all at once in that moment. She realized the truth. The galaxy feared humans because they didn't understand them. But she was beginning to, and it terrified her how much she no longer wanted to go home. Outside, the iron sky of war had passed, leaving silence once again. But inside her heart, a storm had just begun. A storm called trust, born from courage. And when the next threat came, not from her people, but from the stars themselves, she would have to decide where her loyalty truly belonged. The storm within, the days after the battle were quiet, too quiet for comfort. Repairs hummed through every corridor of the Dauntless, sparks lighting the metal ribs of the ship like tiny stars. But peace on a warship was never real. It was only the breath between storms. And in that silence, something dark began to grow. Alara had begun to work beside the medical crew, helping wounded humans despite their surprise. She no longer hid behind her translator. She spoke their words now, broken but sincere. Every time Marcus passed through the med bay, he gave her a small nod, a silent thank you. She didn't know when respect had turned into something deeper. When his calm voice became the anchor she sought, or when his rare smile became enough to make her chest ache. But the crew didn't all share her feelings. Rumors whispered through the corridors. The alien's a spy, the captain's gone soft. She'll betray us when her kind returns, she heard them all. And though Marcus silenced such talk publicly, the distrust remained like smoke after a fire. Then came the message that tore everything open. An encrypted signal reached the Dauntless, hidden in the communication relays. Marcus found it first. It carried Alara's name and her royal seal. It wasn't from her father, but from someone close to him, her brother Kale. The message was simple. The treaty is a lie. The humans plan to occupy Varela. Escape when the stars fade. We will strike soon. Alara froze as she read it, her heart slamming against her ribs. It couldn't be true, or could it? Her people had always feared human expansion. Marcus watched her carefully. You didn't send this, did you? No, she whispered, but if my brother sent it, something is coming. That night, Marcus met with his first officer, Lieutenant Rowe. A man loyal but wary, Rowe's voice was sharp. Sir, she's the reason they found us last time. We can't trust her, Marcus's reply was ice. Until I have proof. She's under my protection. But Alara overheard. Hiding in the shadows, and for the first time, she doubted not him, but herself. Later, unable to sleep, she went to the observation deck. The stars outside seemed colder now. She didn't notice Marcus enter until he spoke softly. You think I don't hear what they say? She turned, her eyes shimmering. They're not wrong to fear me. He stepped closer, his voice low. Fear is easy. Understanding takes courage. She looked away, her voice trembling. You risk your crew for me. He smiled faintly. I'd risk more if it meant peace. That was when she knew this man, this human, was not the monster her people painted him to be. But even as those words settled between them, alarm screamed once more. The lights dimmed. Red flashing through the ship, Marcus's comm crackled. Captain, internal breach, security deck compromised. He grabbed his sidearm. Stay behind me. When they reached the corridor, smoke filled the air, and among the chaos, she saw something that froze her blood. Lieutenant Rowe, the loyal officer, held a detonator in his hand. Sir, Rowe said, voice shaking. The order came from high command. They want her gone before the Virelans attack again. Marcus's jaw tightened. You disobeyed me. She's a liability. Rowe shouted. You're blinded by her. Alara stepped forward, tears in her eyes. If killing me saves them, then do it. But Marcus raised his weapon, pointing not at her, but at Rowe. No, he said firmly. We don't kill to stay safe. We protect to stay human. For a long second, the corridor held its breath. Then Rowe dropped the detonator and fell to his knees. Shamed, Marcus turned to Alara, his voice soft again. Now you see, kindness isn't weakness, it's the hardest thing we fight for. That night, as the crew repaired what remained of their faith, Alara stood beside him in silence. The storm outside had passed. But the storm within both their hearts was only beginning, and when the war that her brother promised finally came, they would face it not as enemies, but as something far more dangerous to both sides. Together, the last choice. The next sunrise on the Dauntless was crimson, the color of danger reflected on every polished surface. The ship floated above a dying world, Varella's twin moons hung in the distance, framed by fleets gathering like storm clouds. The final message had arrived. Kale's fleet was coming, and the treaty was dead. War was no longer a whisper. It was roaring across the void. Marcus stood at the central viewport, his uniform torn, his face lit by red alerts flashing through the bridge. Alara stood beside him, dressed not as a captive but as someone ready to fight. "I can talk to them," she said, her voice shaking. "If they see me alive, maybe they'll stop." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "If you go to them, they'll use you." Her reply came soft but steady. "And if I stay, they'll destroy you." Silence filled the bridge, heavy as gravity. Below them, Virellan warships took formation, rows upon rows. Shields glowing like suns, the Dauntless was outnumbered 20-1. Marcus turned to his crew. "Prepare the quantum field. We hold position." "Sir?" a pilot asked, panic in her tone. He met her gaze. "We're not here to win. We're here to prove that peace was worth fighting for." Alara stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "Then let me go. I'll transmit directly," Marcus hesitated, then handed her his command sigil, the emblem of Earth's fleet. "If this is how it ends," he said softly, "make them see who we really are." She wanted to say something, anything, but her throat closed. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. "Thank you for showing me what kindness means." He smiled, weary but proud. "Thank you for reminding me why it matters." Moments later, her shuttle launched into the void, heading straight for her brother's flagship inside. Her heart pounded as Virellan weapons tracked her descent. Kale's face appeared on her screen, angry, desperate and afraid. "Sister, you've been deceived. The humans plan to occupy—" "No," she interrupted, voice trembling. "You plan to destroy everything because you don't understand them." He scowled. "You've been infected by their lies." She shook her head. "No, I've seen what they truly are. They fight not to conquer, but to protect." The Dauntless appeared behind her in the viewport, its shields flickering as Kale's fleet prepared to fire. Marcus's voice echoed faintly through her comm. "If they fire, pull away." That's an order, but she didn't move. She opened her transmission to all channels, her voice carrying through every fleet, human and Virellan alike. "Listen to me," she said. "I was taught that humans were monsters. But I've lived among them and I've seen mercy, courage, and honor where we expected only cruelty. If you destroy them, you destroy the only hope left for both our kinds." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Kale's ship fired, a blinding arc of plasma racing toward her shuttle. Marcus's voice roared through the comm. "Shields to full. Get her out of there." The Dauntless moved between her and the blast, the explosion swallowing its hull in light. The shockwave rippled through space, and then silence. Alara's eyes widened as the light faded. The Dauntless still stood, but crippled, its engines dying, its hull cracked open to the stars. She screamed into the comm, "Marcus!" Static answered her. Then, faintly, his voice broken but alive. "Told you I'd protect you." Tears streamed down her face as she watched his ship drift. And in that moment, something changed. Her brother's fleet stopped firing. The soldiers who saw that sacrifice could no longer call humans monsters. Weeks later, when peace was finally restored, the Dauntless was repaired. Marcus survived barely, his arm scarred, his spirit unchanged. Alara stayed by his side, not as a diplomat or captive, but as someone who had found her home in the unlikeliest place. Standing together on the bridge, she whispered, "I used to think kindness was weakness." He smiled, looking at the stars. "It's the only strength that lasts." The galaxy would remember that day, the day one human ship faced an empire and didn't fire to win, but to prove love could. And somewhere in the endless night, a story was born of a human who taught an alien princess what it truly meant to be free.